Well, it's 3:01. We should probably get going, and then we'll just add people as they come in. And if they missed anything good, we'll tell them to watch the tape. I'll try and get the video on as soon as possible and make a blog post about it. I'm Paul Nelson, along with Lana Ayers, co-founded the Poetry Postcard Fest in 2007. So if my math is right, this is year 17, although I sometimes don't count that right. 17 years of postcards. I've written over 1,000. I've numbered them starting in the beginning. So I'm getting close to 1,100, which is hard to believe that it's gone on for this long, but it's such a joy. And so many, it has so many different layers as you get into it that it's really a beautiful thing. So I'm grateful you're all here. I got a couple of announcements, and then we'll introduce the people who are going to be on the new Poetry Postcard Fest Project Board. First of all, thanks for being part of this community. It really is a community, and seeing each other, the faces of people whose names we may know or sound familiar, but we rarely get to interact in this way. And thanks to Zoom, that is possible. So welcome to this community, and thanks for being a part. Probably best for folks to mute themselves unless you're going to speak, because sometimes there's background noise, and with Zoom, it tends to cut people out, and we miss some things. So best to mute unless you're about to talk. Early bird registration closes tonight. That's why we're having the open house today. So people who are still on the fence can ask some questions and be talked off the ledge. I remember giving this to a person who was presenting poetry at this international conference, and she says, "So what is it?" I said, "It's you write 31 postcard poems to people on a list by the end of August." And she says, "That's a lot of poems." But as William Stafford said, if you're not writing a poem a day, your standards are too high. And I'm with Stafford on that one. So registration will continue to be open. And, if we have enough on the 4th of July, we'll close it off, because it's awkward to have a list of 10 or 8 people or 12. We'll try to avoid that. And when we get the final 32nd person, it's nice to cut it off at that time, sometime after the 4th of July. But I have to be vague about it, because we like to have full groups. We had 17 full groups last year, 544 people in 12 different countries. And we'd love to expand this fest to 80 countries around the world. I'd really like it to be a global community of poets for peace. And so I'll be working on that. Our Zoom workshops will resume in October after the Cascadia Poetry Festival. They have now had 3 complete seasons, which is also hard to believe. But we've got a couple of hardcore workshop folks in the room, and I'm grateful that you are in the workshops. The 7th Cascadia Poetry Festival happens at Spring Street Center, October 6, 7, 8. Among the featured poets are Brenda Hillman, Tess Gallagher, Andrew Schelling, Jan Zwicky, Robert Bringhurst, Teresa Whitehill, and Cedar Saigo, and others. It's going to be really remarkable. I hope you can attend Cascadia Poetry Festival 7. We also have a vision to create a writer's retreat center on the Olympic Peninsula that would allow more poets of color to get into the wilderness. Just Google, "Why is backpacking so white?" and you get a sense of why this is necessary. But I love the Olympics, and we're thinking of calling it Cagayan Ni, or after Sam Hamill's house that he built in Port Townsend, a Shadow Hermitage 2, Cagayan Ni. I can share a link in the chat about this project, and we're going to start a capital campaign. So if you have any interest in helping, we'd love to hear from you, because we've never built a house before. We celebrate 30 years. Cascadia Poetics Lab celebrates 30 years in December on the 14th, and we're going to be having a party in January, and hopefully releasing another book of interviews from the podcasts and from our audio archive. Details on that coming soon. And I think those are all my notes. So we talked to a nonprofit consultant who we've known for longer than this organization's been around. And Diana Elser, postcard poet and secretary of Cascadia Poetics Lab, gave him the rundown on all that's going on with the organization. And he said, "Paul, you need about 5 or 6 boards for all that you're doing." And so how do we do this? Well, we decided to create some project boards. And one of the ones that was first to form, and it's really still in the process of forming, is the Poetry Postcard Fest Project Board. And I think all the members are here. Ina Roy-Faderman, Judy Kleinberg, Sally Hedges-Blanquez, Margaret Lee, I think, has agreed to, and also Zach Charles. And I'd love it if they could each introduce themselves, talk about what they love about the festival, and how they do it for new people who haven't done the fest before and want to get some sense of how you tackle this 31,056 days. So let's start with Ina. Hello, Ina. Unmute yourself and tell us what you love about the fest and how you do it.
Hey everybody. I'm so glad to be here. What do I love about the fest? Just everything. I often say that August used to be my least favorite time of year. I'm not good with hot weather. It makes me really cranky. But getting to reach out to other people and also to have people reach out to me makes it my favorite month now. How you get through the 30 days, you let go of perfectionism, which is a struggle I know many poets have and many people have. It's a learning experience that way, to send out a poem every day, because it goes straight from your head onto the postcard and out the door, and you don't have time to make it perfect. And freeing yourself from that constraint is a great way to just think, I can just put this out there and the people who are on the receiving end will appreciate that thought. It doesn't matter that it doesn't always have the perfect words, or my handwriting sucks, because my handwriting really sucks. It doesn't matter. What matters is you reached another human being and they are so happy to hear from you. And I know that on my end, I'm so happy to connect with the other people in the fest. Why don't we pass this to Judy, since on my screen she's next up.
Hello, nice to see you all, and to see some of you that I've never actually seen before. Am I clear? Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
I guess what I love is the sense of community, and how this is sort of a magical community, because it is all these people that you don't know, mostly. I mean, there are a few people that I've actually met face to face, but I just really enjoy finding those postcards in the mail. There's nothing as wonderful as getting that kind of mail, especially today when most of us do our mail electronically. And this is an exception, and it's a wonderful exception. As far as how I pursue it, I guess each year I've done something slightly different. A couple times I've come up with an idea for a theme, something that I would write about every day. One year I wrote, each poem started with the last line of the previous day's poem. So there was just this sort of very surprising flow. Never knew where the poems were going to go. This past year, when I went back and looked at it, it was not especially intentional, but I pulled words out of other people's poems and sort of infused my poems with their words, and they got credited in my poems, but it gave me this extra language that was really wonderful to work with. So I find that there's lots of different approaches, and I have been really enjoying it, and I look forward to whatever happens in 2023. So I haven't met Zach, but how about if I pass this along to Zach?
Hey, Zach, nice to meet everybody. I would double down absolutely on what Judy said about receiving the poems. Such a beautiful thing. So fun to just open the mail and have that, and carry it with you for the day or for a couple days until the next one comes through. I also, the Postcard Fest and the kind of trying to escape perfectionism reminds me very much of a study that I read about ceramics, where two separate ceramics classes were given 2 separate sets of instructions. One class was told, make 1 perfect bowl. You have 5 hours, make 1 perfect bowl. The other class was told, you have 5 hours, make 100 bowls, make them as crappy as you can make them. Who cares? 100 bowls. And guess who had the better bowls at the end? 100 crappy bowls. So I kind of think about that when it comes to the Postcard Fest and how fun it is to just like let that go and just really have fun with it, enjoy it. You know, you can make it into so many different things. Last year I'd been saving. So here's one of my postcards from last year that got bounced back to me. I had been saving my trash because as an artist, I do these things. The trash was bits of tea bags. So this is all like tea wrappings, and this from a box of tea, and these two. And when Paul told me about the fest, I was like, I'm gonna make my postcards out of tea. And so I put on all of them a quote: sharing tea with a fascinating stranger is one of life's true delights. That's from Avatar: The Last Airbender from Uncle Iroh. And so whenever I was stuck or something, any kind of writer's block, I brought it back to tea. So it wasn't a theme in every single one of the poems, but if I got lost somewhere, that's what it came back to. And yeah, that's been my experience of it. I don't know, Paul, you mentioned reading. Would you like me to read this one?
Sí, hermano.
Okay. And this has undergone no revision since last year. The same card that got bounced back to me. Time is a lonely love note. The dream within, the time within, the dream within, the clock within the dream. There is a dong, 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 dong. 6 is a lucid number, halfway between a mug of tea and a pleasant dream. I am a sea turtle flipped on its shell, as much 6 as any other number, or 9, who cares how many friends send love notes as long as love notes are being sent.
Amen to that. Put any Spanish in your poem, Zach?
I do. Every once in a while, a little bit of Spanish gets in there. In fact, here, this was to Janine. Janine, I'm sorry if you're here right now and I'm reading you your poem for the first time a year late. But I wrote, Querida Janine, dear Janine. And yeah, not in this one, but I'll throw some words in there. Sometimes I write entirely in Spanish. Yeah, that's another good way. If you're feeling writer's block, go find a word in a different language and explore it.
Beautiful, Zach. Thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing your work.
Yeah.
I got one of those tea bag cards.
Yes, you did. Who should I pass to next? I don't think
Sally.
there's any.
Sally Hedges-Blanquez.
All right, Sally.
Thanks, Zach. Hey. So, yeah, I like a lot of things about the fest. I definitely love getting great mail in my mailbox, but it's also kind of nice to get a note from someone who already read my poem because I mailed mine out to them, and for them to respond to it in some way. So I think I really want to try doing that rather than sort of writing in isolation. So writing more in response to something else. I know one thing with making my own cards, same thing with like Zach. It's like during COVID, it's like, I'm not going to buy anything. I'm going to use what I had. So yeah, I cut up boxes. I was fortunate enough that I bought an old school paper cutter for a couple bucks at a thrift store many years ago. So I love chopping up paper, and hopefully paper is the only thing I chop. But and one thing I really enjoyed too is a friend gave me a bunch of sheet music, old stuff. So I used sheet music on a lot of my collages. There's something about the look of notes. And another thing I totally love using is old maps. And so either from an atlas, from road maps that, you know, I still have some that were my parents, and I'm having a hard time parting with those. So maybe making them into something might be a good way for them to take on another life. And one thing that I would say, I think it's important to make sure that you document your work. So I take a photo with my camera of, you know, front and back side. And I also am typing each poem as I go along. So I have a Word doc of that to come back to. So that's just something important. I must say, I'm not writing directly on the cards. I think I'm pretty concerned about making sure that my handwriting is neat. I think I always have had neat handwriting, but I ran into an artist yesterday at her yard sale, and she also had great postcards too. So just to say, was talking with her, and she said, yes, I've been sending holiday postcards for like 20 some years. I had a family member say, oh, that was from you? I didn't know who I'd been getting that one from forever, because they could not read her autograph. So just saying, make sure your name is very clear. If nothing else, people love trying to figure out who it's from. And I know that the cancellation mark is a good help, unless of course you're on vacation when you're sending, but just saying, it's all good. Another thing that works really well too is file folders. They're great. They're easy to cut. They're most often clean on both sides. So anyway, thanks much. And you can pass it on to someone.
Thanks, Sally. It's funny about the postcard thing, because I got a Christmas card many years ago when I lived in Auburn, and I couldn't read the handwriting. And my wife said, I think that's a Christmas card from Altmar Liebert. And it was from Santa Fe, New Mexico. And sure enough, getting a Christmas card from a jazz star, and I had no idea. So handwriting is important, but don't let that stop you. I've got an electric, used typewriter. Ella, my daughter, who's 11, wanted a typewriter for Christmas, and I got two through one of these social media things, probably next door neighbor or something. And then we had to get them repaired in Portland, in the north end of town. And now I'm like thinking I've got to take out that big typewriter and at least experiment, maybe a couple of exhibition cards to people like Tim Mateer, who sends out, I don't know, something like 80 or 90 cards a year. I think he signed up for 3 groups last year. I'd like for Tim to check in, and then maybe Mary Beth, and then maybe Shelley, who've written some interesting things in the chat. So Tim Mateer from Rancho Chaotic in Austin, Texas.
Here we go. I think this is year 11 for me. And totally has been an expansive and generative 11 years. I also have been taking Paul's class, which has deepened my relationship with the festival. I'm signed up for 2 so far this year. I always sign up as myself and as Rancho Chaotic. The Rancho, he's trying to start a revolution. He's going commercial this year. He's supporting a local artist, Deborah Roberts, here in Austin, Texas. I'm using 2 of her commercially created postcards. And then for the first group I'm in, I've been working with this pile of 1910 to 1930 magazines that were gifted to me. The paper is so brittle. One whole piece I created, I just crumbled paper onto sticky glue, and we'll see what they turn into. I'm also crazy about the stamps. The cards I make are oversized, so they need regular postage as opposed to a postcard stamp. And the commercial stamps, I'll be able to get away with a regular postcard stamp. Oh, here's the thing. It's for one person. This is a gift that I get these things in the mail. I get shivers because it was made for me. It was written for me. It's one thing. And that is such a beautiful concept and idea for me. That's kind of where I land, that nobody else in the world gets it, just you. And that opens up my heart.
Fantastic. Tim, what about the stamps? What are the current stamps you like? Maybe you have some right there.
Well, I do all right here. So I'm going to use for I'm loving all the stamps right now. I got the droids. I got space. I got the skateboards.
Oh, I haven't seen those.
The indigenous Indian skateboards, but these are the ones I'm using for my cards, and they're the the women in cryptography. They're beautiful. So yeah, love a stamp. Love getting cards from our Canadian friends because they've got really good stamps.
Beautiful.
Yep.
Thanks, Tim.
Mhm.
How about Shelley? You had a interesting thing about a dictionary. You there?
Oh yeah, I'm here. Thank you so much, Paul. This will be my 4th or 5th year, and I've been really inspired by the extremely unique postcards I've received. But again, I start on the postcards fronts well in advance, and then I sort of hopefully let that kind of dictate where the poem is going to go. But I write the poems on a daily basis, unedited, which is really, really difficult for me. But I have committed the cardinal sin of clipping things out of a set of world encyclopedias. And I mean, it feels like a sin. And then I say, well, no, it's okay. It really is okay. I don't think there's a law against it. I have literally cut diary or journal entries from my late mother's journal and used those. I have collected 5x7 cardboard dividers in boxes of canned cat food that make perfect cheap postcards. I've collected dried and used different leaves and flora, in different seasons that then become part of the postcard front. I've been really creepy at times and researched the locale of specific poets on my list, found like the name of a diner or a particular cemetery and named that in the poem or called that out in the poem to that particular poet. So it becomes a bit of spy work. And I've yet to hear from anyone saying, oh, that was rather creepy. Didn't know you were familiar with my area. But it's fun when you're at a loss for things. And then the God bless John Koenig, the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows. There's hundreds of these recently created words that define very specific emotions that have not previously had words attached to them, that can really, just upon reading, create their own poems. So those
what's an example of that, Shelley? Do you have the dictionary handy, or do you remember one?
I do. Do you want me to read one of the words?
Yes, please.
Okay. I just wrote a high bun today. I'm in a local poetry group here. We meet once a month on Wednesdays, and I just completed a high bun today. Hey bun, however you like to pronounce it. And it was based on page 245 from the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows. And the word was tiris, Tiris, defined as the bittersweet awareness that all things must end. And the high bun just really wrote itself based on a walk in a cemetery while my companion was Ocean Vuong, only via earbud. You can't believe what can happen when you start flipping through this really beautiful dictionary of obscure sorrows.
Fantastic.
Thanks for that, Paul.
Yeah, tell me what town you live in?
Yeah, Rancho.
What tell me what town you live in, Shelley?
Say that again?
Where do you live?
I live in Des Moines, Iowa,
Oh,
the tall
excellent.
corn state.
Yay. Well, thanks for being a postcard poet, and thanks for coming
Oh,
to the open house.
I'm grateful. Thank you.
Likewise, I am too. All right. Who else had something in the comments? Mary Beth, you were the first in. I was waving hello to your picture.
Yes, yes, I'm always early, right? I had to look up. I've been doing this since 2014. So it's been a while. And I just love the real dailiness of it. I like things that make me do something in a very repetitive way to get over that notion of this is a big deal. Because I think whatever you're doing, painting or art or writing, is eventually gets easier. You just keep going and you ignore that, you know, this is a big deal or people think it's a big deal. You just do it. And so it becomes part of your day. Last year in February, I was staying with my mother while she was recovering from a health problem. And I was kind of cleaning out a lot of stuff from her house because she's 93. And I kind of lifted her couple of dictionaries that were they're very old and they're in very tough shape. And I used those for my postcards last year. So that was kind of fun. I didn't use them to generate the cards, the poems themselves, but I did kind of think about who got what card, and that was kind of fun. I do try to read if I've gotten the card from the person I'm writing to, I try to reread their poems to see if there's something we can kind of do together. And I think that's kind of fun too. Please do write your name and your address on cards so that people don't have to spend a lot of time figuring it out. I like being a detective, but not that much. So that's all.
Oh, here it is. Here it is.
Oh, there it is.
There's
You got a
one.
B. Yeah.
Yeah, I got a B. That's right. Give me a B.
Yeah.
Thanks,
So
Mary Beth.
some of them, so, you know, some people got the one with the initial letters and some people didn't. But that dictionary was like from I think the early 70s. It was missing a lot of words. Like it didn't know about internet. So it was kind of fun.
It's fascinating.
Yep.
The cut-ups of it. I think I got 2 from you, as I recall.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, well, I could spend the rest of the time looking through it, but it's
About
nice
about 8 months later, my mother said, "Have you seen my dictionary?" And I had to buy her a new dictionary.
Oh.
I don't think she's used it since, but at least she knows she has one. You know.
Yeah. Oh, good.
It happens. It
Beautiful.
happens.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thanks for being here, Mary Beth.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is the one I got from Zach. I guess it goes does it go like this? Or maybe is that upside down? That's cool. Yeah. Well, and Bill Mawhinney, you were a first-time guy last year coming in at the last minute, and we didn't scare you off because you're in the house tonight. Do you want to talk at all about your first experience with the Postcard Fest?
Well, yeah, Paul, it was just fun to join the community. I went on Amazon and got a bunch of postcards and I'd go back through my I have a quotation book that when a quotation captures me, I write it down in the book, and I went blank for a while. Well, what am I going to write on these postcards? So I just went back to that book and shared a lot of quotes, and the person who said it's from one person when you open the mailbox, and it's just something very special. Yeah. So thanks, Paul, and I'm back, and I'm hooked. So.
Beautiful. That's the idea. That's the idea. Get you hooked. Yeah, hooked on creating. Hooked on having a practice. I love Bill Ransom's writing theory. Keep writing, it gets better. And Zach, your story about the 100 crappy bowls is just fantastic. That's exactly the way it happens, I think. A little bit about the project board, the Poetry Postcard Fest project board. I'd like to be able to take a weekend off during the fest. And I would like other people to think of what would be good projects to create to, to expand the awareness of the fest. We had a beautiful anthology, 56 Days of August, that came out 6 years ago. So we're coming up on the 20th anniversary, and now is a good time to be starting to plan an anthology. However, that's not my call. I would leave it up to the Poetry Postcard Fest Project Board to decide, yeah, an anthology would be a good thing. I would also love it if after the fest, we had some content from postcard poets on the blog so that people could see and sort of bask in that summer feeling. For me, postcards are very much a summer thing. I love that Jimmy Buffett line where he sort of transposed the two lines of a typical postcard and said, "The weather is here. I wish you were beautiful." Right. So, so anyway, I have big faith in Ina and Judy and Zach and Sally and Margaret to do some interesting things with the Postcard Fest. And like I said, I would really like to see this, the global aspect of it, expand. And my wife Bhakti and I, last month, we went to Trinidad to the International Peace Research Association Conference, which was in Port of Spain, Trinidad. And the notion of presenting at the next IPRA conference, which is fall 2025 in New Zealand on Maori territory, the first time it will be on indigenous land in its 70-year history. And to explain, or not explain, but to discover, to research the connection between being a postcard poet and an advocate for peace. When you are sending poems and receiving poems from someone from another place, I think it makes you a lot less likely to bomb it or to want to do violence against someone from that country because you know them a little bit. So I intend to pursue this notion of the Postcard Fest as a global community of poets for peace. Is there anyone else who would like to talk about their process or has a question about the fest or something to share? Oh, you know what? There's one thing. I see your hand, Marjorie. There's one thing I wanted to share before I bring you on, and that is an interesting story, not about the retreat we're trying to create. That's the page for that. But I saved the tab. I'm one of those tab savers. It's like my desk. How many tabs do you have open? 50 or 60? Anyway, this was out today on CNN. U.S. Postal Service releases national dog bite rankings. So in 2022, California had the highest number of dog bites with 675. Texas and New York were not far behind with 404 and 321. And anyway, I'll just drop that in the chat and just to let you know, if you have a dog, try and make sure that they're not going after the person who brings you all that goodness. Okay, Marjorie, hello.
Hello. This is my first year with this, and I'm very excited about it, especially the putting perfectionism aside. I think a lot of us have that problem innately, but then we're taught to have it even more when we start studying poetry and how to write poetry. And then it becomes kind of addictive. So I'm very excited about that. And the other things I'm hearing too. I have a question about what Sally said. She said she sends postcards back to people who've written her. Are those extras, or do we get a list where, like, do we get the same list that our other people get, or what? Do we get the same?
I can answer part of that, and then I'll let Sally pipe in.
Okay.
You're going to get a list of 32 people, and you are one of those 32. And then you might get a card from someone who you haven't written to. So to respond to their card is something that you're fully capable of doing, and or not. You might be inspired by a line in a poem, and the next poet on your list is someone totally unrelated in a different part of the world. And neither of them are going to know that their line was, to use Judy's words, infusing your poem. But I think that the energetics of it create community because it's all basically in the same house. It's in the same postcard
Yeah.
fest, I believe. But Sally, maybe you have some thoughts about what exactly you were talking about when.
Yeah, what I was referring to is, so when you get your list of people who you write to, that I love hearing how someone, what it was about my poem that resonated with them. And so I thought, I really need to pay more attention when I receive a poem. And if I haven't yet written to that person, to see what I can do about making more of a connection between the writing that I'm doing and the writing that they have sent to me. So that's
Okay.
it. Although I love writing postcards in general, so that's not to say that you can't write a postcard to somebody who's not on your list just because you want to.
Okay, but do you do your full list and then these other people in addition, like the private correspondence, so to speak? Do you do that in addition to your 32, or?
Oh, I'm just saying that I would somehow make the connection when I'm writing the poem or an add-on onto the postcard.
Okay,
Yeah.
does that mean though that you drop someone? Would someone from your list get dropped because you wrote back to someone? No?
No, you still write everybody.
Okay,
Still write
that's good.
everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
No one
Thanks,
loses
Sally.
out.
It looks like Linda has a question.
Linda and then Ginger. Okay, Linda, hello.
Hey, first of all, do I come up as Lenny Wilson or Linda Hochstetler? I never know who I am in Popo. But
oh, well, here you're Linda Hochstetter on.
That's fine. I usually write under Lindy Wilson, but it's nice to see some faces. It's been a few years that life has taken me away from Popo Fest, but I'm really looking forward to being involved in it again. And I wanted to say a couple of things. One of the ways that I keep, and many of you probably do the same thing, but one of the ways I keep it very alive for myself throughout the year is that I take my packet of postcards that I receive, which I've read lots of times because I love them, and I use them as bookmarks through the year in whatever books that I'm reading. And so every time I open my book, I get that little magical feeling again as the first time that I opened my mailbox and found the card. So that's really a special thing that I've established doing over the years. And even the few years that I was away from it, I still use those cards that I received. And another thing that I was going to say was I have often, and I did a little text, but I look at the town or city that I'm writing to, or that the person has sent me the postcard from. And I have learned about so many places across the country and across the world, and like gone in and really been fascinated to read about their city. And sometimes I can find things in a response type of poem. And that's a lot of fun for me. It also, when you just can't come up with something, it's a fun way to get your brain, to come up with something creative for the person. So I want to thank Paul and everybody for having this. I found it a few years ago and was involved for 7 years and then have been away several years. So I'm excited. And Paul, I do have one question. On your blurb about today's meeting, it said something like we're only a month away. Are the starting dates different than they used to be a few years ago? Because we didn't really start writing until August 1st.
Beautiful question. Yes. The 4th of July, the lists go out and people don't have to wait. There are those who like that rush of 31 poems in 31 days. And I tell people, I really don't care when you start. I'd like you to finish by August 31st.
Okay.
And somebody on the Facebook page said they got a card from the 2021 Fest. They just got a card, and I encourage you to complete your list. If it takes you 2 years, that's okay. It's better than dropping the ball, is the way I look at it. Okay. So
all
Lenny,
right.
and the lists, I'm gonna, thanks to Judy Kleinberg's persistent suggestion that I send out a draft list. I think it only took 5 or 6 years for me to take her advice. However, I'm sending out a draft list on the 25th. I'll be getting back from British Columbia, so it might be late on the 25th or early on the 26th, but I will send a draft list to everybody. And if it's good, don't email me back. And if it needs something, if there's a postcard or a zip code issue, many people on the East Coast, I think it's Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New Jersey, and Maine, start with a 0, but many computer programs don't recognize that. So I have to go in and put little lowercase o's in there before the 4 digits that are left. So little things like that happen sometimes. And so if you get your list and it's good, you're good. And if it needs fixing, like for instance, if you want to be known as Linny and not Linda, that's a good time if it hasn't been changed by then. So I hope that helps. We had Ginger who had a suggestion, and Karis, I see that you have your hand up. Very good. Cyber politeness, cyber courtesy. I don't know what it would be. But Ginger, do you still have a question? Would you like to unmute yourself and ask that?
Last year was the first year for me to be involved with this, and I got in kind of late, so I was kind of shooting in the dark. I figured I'll just write postcards and see what happens. And it was great fun. I oftentimes would get inspiration from the postcard picture, whatever that was. And I had fun kind of buying them from all over to send. I do like making the cards, but because I was late coming in last year, I really didn't spend time. Although this year I've thought about it, and we'll see. If it's not looking too good that I'll make too many. I just finished a book that's going to be coming out next month. So the postcards are going to be a nice change from working on a project. It is so fun to get them, and I enjoyed finding the addresses. I would think about places I've been that maybe were the same city where I was sending a card, and a couple of times I had a particular event happen in one of the places where the person was that I sent the card to, and wrote a little poem about that. So it was just fun. And then getting mail is always exciting, you know, and I especially enjoy the handwriting. Some of it's difficult to read, but it's so personal because, you know, the person had it in his hand or her hand. And there's an intimacy there that it's being lost unless we keep this up. Young kids don't even know cursive anymore. And I'm a bit of a rebel. I would send cards to my grandchildren and write them in cursive, and they they would have to have help to read them. And I have a weird, maybe I'm not the only one, but for some reason I can write backwards. And so sometimes I'll write letters or cards to them in backwards. They have to put in the mirror. And so I did a couple postcards like that. So I don't know, those people are probably like, what the heck is this? But I thought it's just fun. And I'm loving this. It's fun to see other people who you can put a face to, a name, and the inspiration. What some of you have said has already given me so many ideas. And I love the handmade cards. I have a great appreciation for that. And like I said, I'm hopeful to do that. It may not end up being this year, but at some point. Thank you for having this. It's great.
Thanks, Ginger. I think that's the next frontier, is making your own cards or Ziploc poetry.